Omer Traditional Blond.
Life is too short to be drinking shitty beer.
Welcome to another edition of Bands, Bikes and Booze Reviews. I've got one from Belgium here today. It is the Omer Traditional Blond, and being a traditional blonde, this is what I would consider possibly a triple. Going by the strength, it is 8%. Now obviously you do get blonde beers, singles if you like, but they're half the ABV, so you could argue that this is a triple, but they've called it a traditional blonde. It looks quite interesting. It's from the Omer Vander Ghinste Brewery, and they're an independent brewery who are based in Belgium, and they've been there in a place called Belgium. They've been there since 1892, so they've got a bit of history, 120 odd years or whatever, and their range is quite interesting. I picked this up from, I think it was Noble Green, and it was relatively cheap. So again, that is why I picked it up. Not much to say about the brewery. As I say, they've been going since 1892. They started off in a cafe, and the owner was called Omer van der Ghinste, and he wanted the windows changed to advertise his beer. But apparently, somebody pointed out to him that actually you're going to have to change these windows every time somebody takes over the brewery. So what they've done is everybody in that family, because it's still a family run brewery, every newborn boy is named Omer, so they don't have to change the windows, and then windows are still there from the turn of the century, which again is quite interesting. So if ever you're in Belgium, check it out. Let's investigate the beer. There's no brew sheet on the website for this. It just gives you a basic rundown of what's on there, but it's got all the traditional stuff that's thrown into a blonde or a triple, if you like. You've got the specialty yeast in there that makes it, but you've also got the hops and the barley. I'll get onto them when I'm opening up the beer. There's quite an interesting brewing process. It's obviously boiled and then it's stored at 20 degrees for 5 days. This is the wort, and then when they inject the yeast into it, and that's when it ferments. Then they leave it for 3 weeks at 0 degrees, so effectively it's lagered, and then all the yeast settles and everything, and then they add the sugar and the carbon dioxide for it to be fermented again. So it's a triple fermentation, because the last fermentation obviously takes place in the bottle. So this is bottle conditioned. And I looked on the website and it said to lay flat, to store upright, and I had it laying flat. And I'm just trying to see in the bottle whether there's any yeast, but I can't see any sediment on the bottle. But anyway, let's get it open and let's see what's going on. Right, there's the cap. It is a black Omer cap. Can you see that? Fucking autofocus. Really strong aromas coming from it already, just from opening. There's the label. Pretty basic label. Now they've got their own glass, but it's very reminiscent of a tulip glass, so I'm just going to throw it in there. Now they've added sugar to this so it can ferment in the bottle. Wow. And as you can see, that is very, very lively. What are we getting on the nose? Wow, that is rather clear for a blonde. Now there is some haze to it. I've never seen him that clear. There's not much aroma coming from it. Spirit alcohol is the main thing that's coming out at the moment. That's just way too lively, that, and I imagine there's yeast at the bottom of that. So this could be a tale of two beers. Now, quickly, while I'm letting that settle, they use malted barley from the Loire region in France, and they use hops, and the hops come from Slovenia, so I'm assuming they're Styrian Goldings that they're using, Czech hops, which I'm assuming are Saaz hops, and from Germany, it could be any hops. I'm really not sure what they use there, but they're in there anyway. That's the best I'm going to get it for the moment, I think, so I'm just going to try it that way. That is a huge three-finger head, and I was pouring it correctly as well, maybe a bit too aggressively, but there you go. Let's get it down the hatch. Cheers. Wow. Now I think there has got to be some yeast in there, because it tastes very light. Oh yeah, that has gone a bit darker. Can't really see any yeast sediment in there, but there it is, like a Belgian cornetto. Let's give it another go with that extra yeast in there. God. Fucking hell. God, that spirit alcohol, Jesus. The first mouthful was really warming as it went down. The second mouthful, wow, really did catch me on the back of the throat there. There's a lot of carbonation in there. It's quite abrasive carbonation in there too. Got a slightly weak body to it. I don't know why that is, but let me dive in again. Flavours are slightly weak in this, apart from the spirit alcohol. That is huge, believe me. It warms as it's going down. There's hints of fruit in there, like banana, clove. They're very toned down though. There's a little touch of spice in that. The carbonation is insane. It's very aggressive in the mouth. I don't know whether that's going to calm down or not, but the flavours are very subdued apart from the spirit alcohol. That is all I'm getting, and the aftertaste is spirit alcohol as well. And at 8%, I'm not surprised really. That is a hefty shot of alcohol. You're not getting the sweetness that I would normally associate with a blonde or a triple. It's quite bitter on the finish, and a lot of that is to do with spirit alcohol, and I'm assuming there's some hop bitterness on that as well, because it is quite quite earthy and quite spicy on the finish. This isn't your average Belgian blonde or Belgian triple. Normally you'd get that sweet, sticky, sugary, candy sugar aftertaste. Not with this. This is quite bitter and quite hefty on the alcohol. You can taste the hops in there. There's hop bitterness on the end of it, and the finish is bitter as well, which is a bit unusual. So what's the verdict on this? Definitely different. I would not have classed that as your average Belgian blonde ale. It is as far removed from stuff like Leffe as you can get. There's no sweet, sugary aftertaste. There's none of the clingy aftertaste that you get with a lot of Belgian blonde ales, and there's a bitterness there that you don't get with Belgian blonde ales. If you're not a massive fan of the sweetness that you get in some of these Belgian blondes, you might like this. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I don't mind it. It's what I've come to expect. That's thrown me a little bit because it's not there. The spirit alcohol in this is absolutely insane. It really does stand out, and it adds to that bitter finish, and it's very warming as it goes down. You can really feel that go down. But I quite like it. It's not bad. I would probably buy this again, and it's one of them beers that it hasn't got the body of your average Belgian blonde or triple, so it's actually quite drinkable. But you've got to be careful. I mean, this is 8%. You know, this is a fair old heft of alcohol that you're getting down your Gregory, but it's quite nice. I do like it. Yeah, bitter finish, which is quite nice. Almost like an IPA. I'm not saying it is, but it's teetering on that sort of genre rather than the Belgian blonde, and I like it. It's not bad. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I like it on the strength of the beer itself. I don't think it's very in keeping with a traditional Belgian blonde, even though they do use the same process. They use the sugar, or the candy sugar as they call it, and they do the bottle fermentation as well. But it just doesn't taste like that at all. It's got that bitterness, and if you can handle that, and you're not a fan of the sweetness of these Belgian blondes, this might be the one to go to. So yeah, I'm going to give that a 7 out of 10, and I'll recommend it. And remember, beer is working class champagne.